Hello, my name is Yuan, founder and CEO of Daily Surprises Media, a lead generation agency that helps coaches and service providers get leads on Instagram, and we have generated over 100 client wins just last year alone. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how do you generate unlimited content on Instagram that actually sells. So content for me personally has been my main way of selling. So I'm going to actually put up my DM inbox. You got to see the behind the scenes stuff somewhere on the screen, and you can see that I've got people reach out to me directly asking to get my free opt-in where they can get nurtured through my email sequence, or they just directly reach out asking me more about my service and how we can work together. So I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that. And more specifically, we're going to cover 3 areas in this video. The first one is my step-by-step process of how do you get unlimited content ideas so you never worry about what you're going to talk about, what you're going to write about for the coming weeks, especially when it comes to content batching. Secondly, we're going to talk about what is actually content that actually converts. Here's where a lot of people get confused with valuable content. We're going to cover that as well. What's the difference? And finally, we're going to move into how do you actually write content that actually converts. We're not just going to give you some tips. We're actually going to give you actual formula to write it, as well an example that I helped my client draft that literally exploded her DM overnight with tons of inquiries to her service. If this is something you're interested in, then keep watching. Okay, so let's get right into get unlimited content ideas. So if you have been online for a while, most likely you're pretty familiar with the concept of content pillars. So content pillars are basically the main topics you're talking about within your niche or within what you do. Content pillars are basically the areas you are helping your ideal clients on, right? So you help them in a journey. So let's be very specific and put here an example. Let's say you're a business coach, right? So you help your ideal client with quite a few journeys on the way in order to help them to be successful. So one of those journeys can be, sales process, help them to get better at sales. One of them can be mindset, help them to develop a very strong mindset so they keep going. One of them can be something else, like we're just going to make it up right now because I'm not a business coach, so I'm going to make up a few areas, right? One of the journeys that can be tracking, so you know what your KPIs are, and how do you making sure you improve consistently, right? So there are always a few journeys that you really help your ideal clients work on. And that is basically your content pillars. So when you think about the areas, which is the journeys you help your ideal clients to go through, each of them is actually quite a big topic. So go back to this example, right? Let's say you help your ideal client with sales. Sales is such a big journey. There's so many things fit within. There are so many scenarios. So what I want you to do is to really narrow in to a specific point in that journey. So let's put an example here. Let's say if we look at sales, there are so many topics around it, right? We can talk about how do you write content that converts? How can you get somebody on a sales call? How do you run the sales call? How do you sell in the DMs? There are many, many ways of selling, right? So ways of selling can be a specific point into sales. And when it comes to after the sales, right, there's going to be people saying yes or people saying no. It's almost like a flow chart. When they say yes, what do you do next, right? You sign contracts and stuff. What if they don't move forward with that? What if they say no? How do you do objection handling? So you can see straight away there are so many touch points within this journey that every single touch point, every single slice of that journey can be a post itself. And it's not just Instagram caption post, it can be actually a blog post, long post already, right? Because each one, when you really hone it in, when you zoom it in, there's so many things you can talk about around that specific topic. So let's go back to the sales example, and let's say we pick one very specific area, which is, say a client said yes on the call, but then when you send over, no matter the contract or invoice, whatever your next steps looks like, they actually haven't taken action after that. What do you do? So what your follow-up process should be after somebody have said yes. Can you see how that just getting so much easier by zooming on one slice of the journey, right? Because there are so many things now you can talk about. So given this specific example, straight away you can talk about what a follow-up process should look like if somebody has said yes, but they haven't moved on, right? That can be a very specific short post, short caption for Instagram. But the other way you can still focusing on one slice of the journey, but make more content around it, is to choose an angle. So what I mean by that is when you share a follow-up process, when somebody said yes but haven't taken action, that's almost like a tip or a tutorial, right? So that's like an angle on this specific case. So what are the angles you can share on this case? Well, you can share a client story, right? A beautiful case study, which is much more powerful than just a client testimonial. You can share about a tool. So for example, how do you kind of trace and track the follow-up process, right? Like when do you need to do follow-up, or like stuff, do you use Excel or Google Sheet, or do you use some other CRM tools, right? So a tool that can be a great angle on it. And another angle can be what not to do, right? So that normally almost generate that fear is not the right word for it, but it's almost generated that curiosity in a way. It's like, oh, I'm actually doing this right now. Is that something not recommended to do? So what is going to be this post about? It really generates people's curiosity, right? So when you really look at like this one thing slice on how do you do the follow-up process when somebody has said yes, but have not taken an action, you already have 4 posts on it straight away, right? You can share a tip or tutorial. You can share a client story, you can share a tool or a process you love to use, you love to do, or you can share about what not to do, which is almost like a tutorial, but on the opposite angle. Straight away, you have 4 posts just based on this one thing slice. And you can imagine how many thing slices within the journey. So that really is how you get unlimited content, is by focusing on very specific area and then do multiple angle spin on it. Okay, so now you know exactly what to talk about. How do you then construct your caption in a way that actually sells? So what I mean by that is, how do you get your audience to actually do the call to action you have at the end of your post? And when I say call to action, I don't just mean those engagement call to action, which are like double tap if you agree, share it to your friend if you find it valuable, that kind of stuff. I actually mean the sales call to action. So for example, you can tell people, click link in my bio to book a free strategy call with me, or DM me this word in order to get my free opt-in, which is what I normally use, because it really helped me to figure out who is my warm audience straight away. As well, I can, follow up with their feedback and can understand, hey, I see that you have get the opt-in now. Can I get your feedback on this? So really help overall with my sales process. So how do you actually encourage people to take your call to action? Well, that really comes down to content that actually converts. And what a lot of people misunderstood is they think content that converts is same as valuable content. What I mean by valuable content is, in the space, a lot of people share like tips and tutorials. There's nothing wrong with that. It's definitely very important for you to build your authority in the space. But if you only share tips and educational content, you are not really going to get sales from it, just because when you kind of share, here's how you do it, but you don't really have the next steps. You don't really tell people what's missing, because that's only a very small piece of the pie. If you don't explain that in a really well explained way, people are not going to realize that, oh, this is only a small piece. I actually still have this piece that's missing, and I need that from you. And that is where content that converts comes in, right? So content that converts, in my opinion, is what's actually the step number 2 in my Yuan framework, which is called uncover the gap. So uncover the gap type of content is what I consider that content actually drives sale. So to give you an example, right, I'm gonna share my screen a bit where I walk you through the formula, all of that, but let's just go through what does that actually mean. So content that uncovers the gap, we're really focusing on highlighting where they are right now, and we're gonna kind of highlight where they wanna be. And we're gonna explain, we're gonna almost like uncover that gap to let them know what is the thing, or what are the things that holding them back, that kind of limit them from getting from A to B, right? So that is what uncover the gap content actually do. And there are many ways you can actually do it. So for example, you can share a tutorial and you show people like the follow-up process we talked about, right? So when it comes to people saying yes, but they haven't taken action, here's how you do follow-up process. But you can also remind them on the call, people can actually say no as well, right? So there's a different process with that, which is called objection handling. So if you want to learn how to do objection handling, you can have an opt-in for it. And here's where you uncover the gap, right? So you tell them, hey, you learned this valuable skill set, you've learned all of this, but look, here's the other side, you haven't seen it yet, right? So here is the gap in your business that you need to fulfill. So maybe when they look at your tutorial, they're like, got it, I've got everything. But that's not quite true, right? Because you haven't showed them the whole picture. So within the sales, people will not just say yes, they can say no as well. So how do you do the sales no kind of objection handling, right? So when you uncover the gap over there, people's going to start paying attention because they trigger that curiosity. They're like, okay, I want to see what they have for offer to have me solve this problem as well. Because if they've already done a really good job, a tutorial or some sort of resource helping me to solve the other problem, now I trust this person to help me solve another problem, right? So that's where the differentiation is. Can you tell? The valuable content is where you share tutorial, but where you do content that uncover the gaps, you tell them, hey, that's only one slice. The slice after that normally is this piece. That's when you sell. That's where you help them to see, here's a gap, but I can help you to fulfill that gap. I can help to fill it so you can go from A to B. Now that you're very clear on what content that sales looks like and what content that uncovers the gap actually is, we're going to dive in. I'm going to share my screen to explain the formula we use, as well as a specific example so that everything kind of makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about how do you actually write a piece of content that uncovers the gap. So if we generalize it, there's more formulas to it, but I'm going to show you one example today. So the core structure of a content that uncovers the gap need to have 4 elements within. So the first element is you want to get their attention. So as we mentioned before, we should really focus on where they are in their journey that they're not happy about, right? And then we move on to desires. You can see this kind of bold letter. These are the formula here. So we want to move on to their desire in terms of where they want to be. I think they haven't quite get there yet, but where they want to be. And then the next part is for you to uncover the gap. So we're going to talk about ways you can uncover the gap just in a second. But then at the end, you want to give them action, right? Here's where your sales call to action kicking. And if you have done sales call to action before, but you don't have the structure previously, like as in this structure, chances are your audience, they're not going to take up your call to action and they never really just book a call with you. So you need to making sure that all the pieces are there in order to make a piece of content work, okay? So the post you're looking at right now is the exact post I help my client to put together in order to get her service so many eyeballs on it. Literally overnight, her DM blow up. So we're going to go through the specific example as well. You can see how it actually follows the guideline, follows the formula in here in order to get that result. So attention, we'll tell them also some background information before we jump in. This client, she is helping moms to lose their weight. So with that background, you will know why this whole post makes sense, okay? So the first starting line where we're putting a hook out there to get people's attention, we say, you thought you cannot lose weight because you are on the wrong diet. So that's where majority of her ideal clients are, right? So they are trying to lose weight, but they haven't been able to, and they really think the problem is because they're on the wrong diet. And then we go into desire. We say, well, if I tell you, you can lose all the weight you want, regardless of what diet you are on, right? So that straight away piqued interest. People start getting curious, like, okay, I know that that's where I want to be. And I know you're describing me right now. I feel like you're in my head. How do I get there? Right. And that is where she uncovered the gap and positioned herself as the solution. Right. So she's saying, don't trust me. Have you seen my story highlight how my clients not only just lose weight, but also keeping the weight off? None of them are on any crazy diet. But what do they have in common? A secret ingredient a lot of people is missing. Right. So now she's really getting everyone's attention. Be like, okay, so she knows something that really works, but potentially lots of people are missing. So it's kind of common mistake a lot of people are making, but they don't know what that is. Now people are really interested in that now. And her call to action is DM me the word secret and I give you the missing ingredient. Guess what happens then? Lots and lots of people DM her the missing ingredient, like lots of her DM her the word secret in order to get that missing ingredient, right? Because they really want to go from where they are to where they really want to be, but they don't quite know how to get there. Now they can see the gap. It's something that they're doing wrong. Straight away, she uncovered the gap for them, but she hasn't been quite explicit on what that thing is. And that's why they kind of reached out and asked for the missing ingredients. And that is how she got her calendar booked, like multiple calls within a week, just with one caption alone, right? So can you see the power of uncover the gap type of content? And with uncover the gap, you don't necessarily need to kind of don't tell them there and then, right? So you can still do the tutorial here. You can still show them, okay, here is why people are not losing weight. they think they're on wrong diet because it's actually something else. Just a spoiler alert here, what she's actually talking about is mindset is missing. But let's say she can actually now like talk about how mindset is so important in the weight loss journey, because it's not just about, like doing the things, doing the hard things. If your mindset is not in place, you're not going to be consistently taking actions, right? And that's how she get people's attention. Whereas previously, she keep talking about, you don't have a strong mindset. That's why you're not losing weight. But for her ideal client, that is not something they can connect right now. She's not speaking to where they were. So that is why her content wasn't converting back then. And that is why by making this one small tweak, we start getting people paying attention, right? So she can actually give the step-by-step breakdown here and explain why mindset is super important, gave a client case study, and then call to action can still be, this is what I help people with. If that's something, you struggle with, you want to talk to me about, click the link in my bio to book a free call with me, or DM me a certain word to get my opt-in, to work through your mindset stuff, right? So that can be multiple ways you can uncover the gap, but this is kind of general flow with it. And I actually have multiple formulas for that, which I actually cover within my bootcamp. I'll explain that in a second, but I really want to show you first the power of uncover the gap in action, right? So this is, obviously I can't show my clients DM, which I can see every day, but I can't really show that. So I'm going to show you what my DM looks like. So you can see I constantly having people react to my stories. Normally I ask them to vote for certain things. If they want to get my opt-in, if they do, I send them a link to it. And you can see that, this person as well straight away asking to get my opt-in. You can see there are people here asking my pricing for my one-on-one strategy session, and people are seeing hashtags, conversion. If you go through my post, you will see these are the things I ask my audience to do. So I say, DM me this word conversion in order to get something, DM me this word hashtag to get something. And that is how I'm able to constantly knowing who is the warm audience within my community. And I know that who is ready to buy, right? So that's the power of uncover the gap type of content. But obviously, uncover the gap of content can really support you, can nurture your followers into clients. But if you don't really have leads, followers yet, obviously the whole funnel is kind of still missing. So in order to make the whole funnel work, what you actually need is my 4-step UN framework, which is the framework all of my clients use. I use as well on a daily basis to get clients consistently from Instagram organically. If you're interested in that, I will definitely drop the description, the opt-in in the description box below, so you can access to it. But hopefully this bit makes sense. Now, at this point of the video, you've already learned number 1, how to generate unlimited content ideas on Instagram, literally my step-by-step process. You've learned the difference between a valuable content and content that actually sells, content that actually converts. You also seen the formula to write captions or content actually converts, with a specific example that my clients used in order to generate lots of queries to her service overnight. That is all really helpful, right? But the challenge is, if you only have good content, but you don't actually have eyeballs on those content to consume it, you still wouldn't have sales, you still wouldn't have clients. So it's very important to get eyeballs on your content as well. I think you're going to find my last week's video really helpful, which is hashtag strategy this year to help you to get maximum exposure on Instagram. So I'm going to put the video somewhere on the screen here for you to click there right now, so you can know how do you leverage hashtags to making sure you can showcase your content in front of your ideal client. Hope you enjoyed this week's tutorial, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.